All right, welcome back to another episode of the Black Bullion Show. This cure for the economy could kill it. Now, this is a new one from Jim Rickards from his website, The Daily Reckoning. And you may be wondering to yourself, well, what exactly is this cure? Two words: money printing. Now, before we get into it, I just want to say if you want to just check out a quick synopsis of this video, check it out in the description below this video. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and also like the video to help get this economic evangelism out there. All right, let's get back into it. Obviously, the Fed recently has been pulling from its go-to playbook of money printing, but you know, you start to wonder about, well, what happens if the money printing just continues even after the crisis? Well, wonder about that no more because we have the wonderful thinkers coming from the camp of MMT. Now, you might be familiar with MMT if you actually saw the video I did on Stephanie Kelton, the former advisor to the Bernie Sanders campaign. Definitely check that out if you haven't seen it. But if you have, then you are probably familiar with MMT and how I feel about it, which isn't good. But definitely check that out. So, what does Jim see as far as money printing is concerned and MMT? So I'm just going to read this brief highlighted quote here. And it goes: the basic idea of MMT is that the government could merge the balance sheets of the Treasury and the Federal Reserve and treat them as if they were a consolidated entity. That's not legally true, but never mind. The Treasury could spend as much money as it wanted on anything it wanted. MMT asks, if the Treasury doesn't spend money, how are people supposed to earn money? I mean, ideas like hard work, innovation, and entrepreneurship doesn't even enter the discussion. In MMT, all wealth comes from the government, and the more they spend, the richer we get. Someone needs to open up a page in the Book of Rome. Let's continue though. The Treasury finances this spending by issuing bonds. That's where the Fed comes in. If the private sector won't buy the bonds or wants too high an interest rate, the Fed can just crank up the printing press, buy the bonds with the money created from thin air, stick the bonds on its balance sheet, and wait. Now, during periods of excessive money printing, in general, should inflation take over after that, what usually happens in that kind of environment? Well, gold tends to perform extremely well, as we've seen in the past. Now, MMTers will say things like, well, inflation won't be a problem in the future. Money printing doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have inflation. True, but they also forget another factor in the inflation formula, and that is velocity. Now, currently, velocity has been trending downward since the early 2000s. For almost 2 decades, it's just been trending downward. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the concept of velocity, it's how quickly or how often money changes hands in an economy. If money never changes hands in an economy, no matter how much money you have, you're going to have a velocity of zero and you aren't going to have an economy. But as long as money keeps churning, you're going to have an economy. So MMTers are saying, well, look, obviously we don't have any inflation, but part of velocity is psychological. One of the reasons why velocity is so low is because people feel uncertain about their current economic situation and the economic situation of the country. And obviously they've been feeling that way since the early 2000s as we see velocity trending lower. So it's partly psychological, coming from the citizens of the US. So if it comes down to psychology, what can the academics and those who are in charge, in the Fed and Treasury, what have you, do? What can they do if the psychology changes? because we all know it's just not going to keep trending downward. Like that's not how life works. That's not how anything works. Nothing just continues to go in one direction forever. It's going to either stop and cease, or it's going to go in the opposite direction. It's just not going to continue to go downward. So when that does happen and we hit an inflection point in velocity and things either go up or things just end, what can those in power do to stop that? And the answer is nothing. They can't do anything. So, I always say gold is a good bet, and I'm betting on it as well. It's a hedge during these times, and especially if MMTers were to kind of get the reins on the economy even after things start to get better. So, who is getting into gold now? Who's getting into the gold game right now during this crisis? I actually saw this tweet from Jim Rickards the other day on May 5th, and he says this after posting this article from the Financial Times. Hedge funds now jumping into gold. Bigger funds I spoke with were in this trade last year. So, some of the smarter ones have already been doing this. No worries, the hedgies tend to bail after short-term profits. Gold is going to $14,000 per ounce. Still time for everyday investors to join in. Now, we've done videos before where I forecasted, how I think gold will possibly perform with different scenarios. But generally, myself, Jim Rickards, and even others have had an average performance for gold being roughly around 14,000, 15,000, and so on. So, obviously, Jim Rickards is saying that, hey, when hedge funds are in this game, they don't really stay in too long. So definitely don't take a look too deeply into what moves they're making. But if we take a look at this article from the Financial Times, title is "Hedge Funds Bet on Gold as Refuge from Unfettered Currency Printing." Now, one of the things you can start thinking about when it comes back to things like MMT is how would hedge funds and others behave when policies such as just unfettered currency printing continues to be the law of the land even after a crisis? Would hedge funds be so short-term thinking in their bet on gold? Or would it be more of a bullish scenario for gold in the long term? That's actually a question I have for you guys. So let me know in the comment section below. If the MMTers got in control of our financial future, is that long-term bullish for gold? Let me know in the comment section below. And also, please give the video a like. Please subscribe if you're new. Once again, it's Black Bullion. Thanks for watching.